Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Self-Publishing Insiders Live with Draft to Digital, and I'm really glad that you're here. This has been it's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to be on the show due to one technical glitch or another, but this time we're smooth sailing, and we got a guest that I'm really excited to have on the show. We have Kimberley Howe, who is the Executive Director of International Thriller Writers and all the things that ITW covers. So welcome, Kimberley. I'm really happy to have you here.
It's such an honor to be invited. Thanks a lot, Kevin.
You and I have never met in person, but we have met digitally numerous times now, mostly via emails, and mostly because of my confusion about membership and things like that. So thank you for being such a great resource.
Seriously, I love hearing from you. Drop me a line anytime. Just make something up that you need.
Yeah, I will, and you're on it. I will totally make stuff up just for the excuse to talk to you. So you now, how long have you been? You've been with ITW for quite a while.
Yeah, well, I volunteered at the very first ThrillerFest, which was in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was 18 years ago, believe it or not. And wow. Ever since then, we're been in New York City and Manhattan, and so I kind of became a volunteer first. And then became, a Pitch Fest director. And then I went ahead and became assistant ThrillerFest director, then ThrillerFest director, and now ITW director. I'm very passionate about this organization. Basically, our mandate is just to support thriller authors worldwide. So what could be a better job than that?
Yeah, that's a lot of work and responsibility come out of volunteering for something 18 years ago. That's what volunteering gets you. Yeah. Now, is that your role there? Is it still volunteer? You're not volunteer now, like
no. I am in a staff role, but because it's definitely full-time plus. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to. I still volunteer for tons of things, but yes, I am staff.
Yeah. I'm always impressed by that because I know I've never been courageous enough to volunteer for a role in one of these organizations because I know what that leads to, and frankly, I don't have the time. But at least I say that. But I'm always impressed by people who go all in for things like that. You should be you are to be commended.
You're very kind. But it's so, when you're passionate about something, Kevin, it doesn't really feel like that because you'd want to spend your time with those kind of people and enjoying that group anyways. So it's great.
Yeah, that's true. And you, speaking of people, this organization's been around for quite a while, and there are some pretty impressive names on the roster there. What's it like rubbing elbows with all these mega famous thriller writers?
It's true honor. And what I love about our group is that we don't have a green room or a VIP area. Everyone just mingles. So when you go to the cocktail party, whoever the stars are that year, they'll just be right there ready to talk to you. Diana Gabaldon came last year and she couldn't have been more gracious. She stood and talked at the cocktail party for hours. She was super fun. So, when George R. R. Martin came, same deal. He was really, really kind. And I found out that he's a massive baseball fan. And so truly, honestly, most of the people who have really made it big are super nice. Of course, there's the odd person who may not be perfect, but hey, that's life.
Yeah. It's funny because I've talked to so many people, so many like mega authors, and when you get them just one-on-one, they're just like everybody else. Like they're nervous about being on the show, and they're all those things that you think they would be immune to. After time, but
that like a lot of writers are introverted, so doing this kind of interview, it puts them under a lot of stress, and they want to make sure they say the right things and do the right things. So I can understand completely.
They need to relax. Come on,
exactly.
You're talking to another writer.
That's true.
We're just if you've got your coffee, I've got my coffee. We're just having coffee together.
We love that.
So let's talk a little bit about the organization itself. And I'm a proud member. I have benefited somewhat from that membership. I don't take advantage of things as much as I should. I need to dig deeper. But what are some of the perks of being a member of ITW?
Sure. So I think when you become published by an ITW recognized publisher, and there's a list at thrillerwriters.org. you automatically get free membership to our organization, which I think is pretty special.
Yeah.
From there, we have millions of things we can do for you. So if you're a debut author, we have a full debut program that really walks you through the entire first year of your publication. And there's people that are coming in to mentor, some New York Times bestsellers who will spend time with you. You'll also get to go on the stage at the debut author breakfast at ThrillerFest. So there's one perk if you're a newer author.
Yeah.
And I welcome everyone to join because the support you need in the first year is imperative. I mean, it's tough business. It's tough being out there with over 1 million books, published a year. And then we also have a wonderful e-magazine called The Big Thrill.
Mm-hmm.
So we will feature your books in there and send it out to our thousands and thousands of members. And basically, it's like a reading guide. It's a nice opportunity to see what's new and what's coming out soon. And how do I, decide which to read first? That's the biggest decision, I think.
Right. Yeah. That's the challenge I have.
Yeah. And we're just going to launch in the next few months a brand new website called Right to Thrill. And this is going to be like a portal to keep us all connected throughout the year. So basically, there'll be a forum on there so that people can ask questions and get help and advice. There'll be craft advice. There'll be business advice. It's going to be fantastic. And I really feel, strongly that, it'll be the new hub for ITW. The place to go. We're going to have constantly rotating advice. We'll have videos, multimedia stuff. So that's kind of, but there's endless benefits. Networking. We also do a lot of video town halls. So basically, if there's a subject you are really interested in, like how do I get an agent? Well, you can look at one of our town halls and hear from top agents about what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually know, I have personal contacts and friends who actually their careers started because of networking at ITW. Like they actually got the leg up that they needed to actually, jumpstart a career. So it's a great resource.
And, we have a load of success stories posted on the internet on thrillerfest.com. So you can take a look there because like you said, look, when you put talented people together with industry professionals, magic always happens. And that's what we love to create. We want to create that magical environment where connections are made and friendships are forged. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So when is ThrillerFest? When does that happen?
Sure. So it used to be mid-July, right after July 4th weekend. But then we had to switch hotels because the Hyatt was being torn down. So we're at the Sheraton right now. And it's after Memorial Day weekend. So basically the last week of May combined into the weekend of June. So, May 30th to June 3rd this year.
Yeah. That's why I'm never able to go because I'm always at some other conference I'm already booked for. So I'm hoping that one of these years I can swing through and hang out with everybody. So the conference itself, I mean, how long does it last usually? Two, 3 days, right?
I really want you to come, Kevin. So
I do want to come. I'm going to work it out. I'm going to figure it out.
So it's really cool. Like when it's not on a holiday weekend, after the holiday weekend, we tend to have a full day FBI or ATF session on the Monday. Tuesday is masterclass where you'll study in an intimate retreat with like 10 people or fewer with a New York Times bestseller. There's nothing better than masterclass, in my opinion. If you're a newer writer, you're going to get really helpful feedback and spend an intensive day with a very successful teacher who is very good at instructing and sharing knowledge. Because not only when we go to masterclass, we always pick people who are New York Times bestsellers, but that are also excellent teachers. Because, not everyone's comfortable teaching writing, right? Some people are just very instinctive about it.
Yeah.
So then on Wednesday and Thursday morning, we have Craft Fest. So picture 4 tracks of everything you want to know about the business of writing, the nuts and bolts of writing, the craft of it. And sometimes we throw in some really fun sessions like blood spatter analysis or, cyber hacking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's super fun. Then Thursday afternoon, we have Pitch Fest, which I affectionately call the zoo. We have 60 agents. Yes, that is correct. 60. Who, because we're in Manhattan, we can do this.
Yeah.
We come and hear pitches. And so all week long, it's really fun. You basically prepare your pitch. We help you hone it. And then on Thursday afternoon, a lot of, nerves as they pitch their story. And that's where a lot of magic happens, is Pitch Fest.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen events like that at other conferences, and it draws a crowd. And are these agents, everyone that's coming to this thing, I'm guessing, are primarily focused on thrillers. Like, they know they're going to get most all thriller pitches, right?
Yeah,
so
but you know what?
Tailored.
I do want to say this though. When we say ThrillerFest, we want you to know we're super inclusive. Like, we have romantic suspense authors who come. We have science fiction thriller writers. We have horror writers. We have Western writers. We have everyone, young adult. So just so you know, this is the way I kind of define thriller. It's called page-turning fiction. Anything that makes you stay up late at night and you just can't put it down, that's a thriller.
Okay. I like that. That's a nice loose definition that almost anything can fit in.
And we're very warm and welcoming to everybody. We even had a cookbook author one year, ironically. Isn't that crazy?
The last thing I want, though, is a cookbook thriller, because I want to know what I'm eating, and I want to know what the impact's going to be.
Yes, no eyeballs, please. Exactly.
Yes.
Love it. So
I don't want my cookbook author going to splatter class.
I know, right? Blood splatter analysis. Right, when you cut the meat and it's raw. No, for sure. It gets a little crazy. But anyway, so Friday and Saturday are kind of like the hub, the kind of, denouement, excitement, climax of ThrillerFest. What happens then is we have a lot of very interesting panels. We bring in a lot of industry professionals to speak on, how do you get published? What are the steps, or what's the author agent relationship like? All of these kind of things. Yeah. And then we also have our spotlight guest interviews. So these interviews are one-on-one, like a talk show format. Yeah. And we, for example, this year we'll have, Brad Thor coming in to interview Jack Carr. That'll be a really compelling conversation.
Yeah. He helped launch Jack's career. So that'd be a great, I'd love to see that. I've interviewed Jack a couple of times, and he's a great guy.
He sure is, yeah.
Never gotten to talk to Brad Thor, but
he's really nice. I was able to interview him one day. Very intelligent man, very thoughtful. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I'm so glad he's coming to join us. And then the very grand finale is our banquet on Saturday night. And that's where we give out the Thriller Awards and present the Thriller Master Awards, which are going to Charlene Harris and Walter Mosley this year. And then we give out Silver Bullet Award, which is a charity-focused award, and that's going to Michael Connolly this year because he's done so much to help others.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I will just keep watching my mailbox for the announcement of my award.
There you go,
Kimberly.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
I don't know. I literally couldn't tell you because it's the judge, the VP of awards and the head judges that know all that scoop.
Yeah. Well, when I reach a Michael Connolly level, we'll see.
I totally believe in you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then we also have amazing from the UK and from Nigeria, Oinkin Braithwaite coming as well. My sister, the Serial Killer, that amazing book that took off. So we have a lot of exciting things this year, and I can't wait to welcome everyone.
So when it comes to the publication and the website and all that content, like who's generating all that content? Where's all that coming from?
Great. So this is the best thing in the world, I feel, is that we have our members help us, because bottom line is we've got a lot of expertise, as you mentioned earlier, in our group. So we'll just write different authors and ask them, can you do like the 3 best tips to improving your craft, or, whatever. And it's going to be really exciting because you'll hear from different types of writers. Yeah, and that's why, like we said earlier, like there's going to be mystery type writers, and there's going to be thrillers, and there's going to be horror, and
cookbook authors.
That's. I'm still thinking this thriller cookbook's a great idea. But what's really interesting? Like, I did my master's at Seton Hill, and part of that effort, you had to critique in other genres. So you'd be assigned, people to critique. And you would be critiqued, of course. And you had to critique across different genres. And I'm telling you, it was powerful for me because through romance, I saw the importance of a love story in a book and how much more it can bring depth to that novel.
Yeah.
You know, and in fantasy, world building became a big deal. And it really, aren't we all building worlds in our books, even if they're on Earth?
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting to me how certain aspects of certain genres, it's like it gets locked into that genre. Like world building is always associated with fantasy. And, if there's a romantic thread, it's always associated with a romance novel. But the truth is, especially thrillers, like all that stuff applies. It's all applicable. Like, why wouldn't you want to concentrate on the world you're building? Yeah, maybe it parallels the real world pretty closely, but there's something going. You've got this secret organization or, this terrorist group or whatever. So you definitely need to do some of that.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I like the mix of content at the conference and on the website and that sort of thing. Like especially, you have the threads of like craft and business. What's the more popular content for you guys?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say, people really want to understand social media and how to leverage that.
Oh,
yeah. It's an art of its own. Okay. Like I always think of this, there's three kind of prongs to writing. There's the actual craft, and you really need to work hard to write the very best book that you can, because at the bottom line is people are only going to come back and read your next book if they loved your last one. So craft is to me the most important thing. And sometimes people forget that. They just always think about the business side of things. Then there's the business side. And where I mean there is just like, the contracts, how does the industry work?
Yeah.
How do I get reviews, all that. Then the third one is marketing. And marketing tends to be where everyone focuses so much energy.
Yeah. Yes, that's the number one thing we're asked about as well. Everyone jumps on anything marketing related, and they're hoping for silver bullets. And I wish I had one to give you. But actually, if you had a whole bunch of silver bullets, you might be able to force people to buy more of your books. I don't recommend the strategy, though. No. So now I want to pivot a little, but before I do that, I want to tell everybody watching, like, if you've got any questions at all, feel free to drop them into the comments, and we'll give them to our guest. I'm sure she'd be willing to chat you up. But let's pivot a little and let's talk about you and your stuff, because you are a thriller writer yourself, right?
I sure am. And just before we dive into that, I just want to say, like, my email is on the ThrillerFest website. So please don't hesitate. Also, if you think of something later, write me. I'm always delighted to hear from anyone that is as passionate about thrillers as I am.
Make up problems. That's what she told me. Make up a problem and email it to her.
I can't wait, Kevin. Your creativity is going to be tested now.
Yes. All right. I'm going to send you like a series of like thriller related like prompts.
Okay.
Say that, this is what's happening in my life. This man has kidnapped my daughter. And so you now you write under the it's not really a pen name if it's just a shorter version of your name, is it? I don't even know. But KJ Howe is your nom de plume.
Yeah. I don't think it's really a pen name. It's just like, the initials with the same. But yeah, I mean, and you mentioned kidnapping. Well, that's my specialty. So ask any questions you have about kidnapping, because I've spent the last 7 years researching kidnap and ransom, and it's been a fascinating journey for me.
Yeah.
And truly inspirational. I feel like a changed person because of it, knowing what hostages do go through when they're in captivity.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's really interesting. One of the most memorable lines from the television show Castle was that there's two types of people who think about murder all the time: serial killers and novelists. And it's kind of amazing how often I really cringe to think like if the FBI or somebody is tracking my search history. Are you like that as well?
Like the worst. Yeah. No, I mean, because there's no such thing as too dark for me. So I'm like, okay, what could happen now? And you have to Google certain things. So 100%. I'm pretty sure that they do know if you're a creative writer that, if you're doing these kind of things, that there's a reason for it, a respectable reason for it.
Yeah, surely, hopefully, I pray to God. So how do you handle research for your books? I mean, if you go that dark, like, what are your primary resources for?
Sure. So I'm really an intensive researcher. I used to be a medical writer, so I think that kind of comes with the territory. And I have basically, I read everything I could on kidnapping, and it wasn't even close to enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was I Googled kidnap and ransom conference, and I found there was one. And so I went and I attended, and it was really kind of funny. The organizer said to me later, she goes, when you first said you were coming, I was like, oh, you're going to be alone in the corner. And then she goes, but every time I saw you, you're talking to someone, it was all going well, And I think that this is why, because it's an incredibly shadowy world and people do not want to discuss cases. Yeah. But what I was there for was to immerse myself in the world and understand what these kidnap negotiators do every day, what they go through, what their training is, and all these professional questions. Yeah. And I took these people to the bar and I just allowed them to tell me war stories. And it was fascinating. And I knew I was hooked on kidnapping. And that kind of sounds strange, doesn't it? But yes, I really feel it's really like a lot of crime centers around murder. Yeah. But kidnapping in some ways is worse because there's a purgatory the person is in. They're not alive, but they're not they are alive, but they're not living, right? They're stuck in this box or area, and it's like a purgatory, and they don't know the next day if they're going to be killed or if they're going to be rescued or if they're going to be negotiated out. And it's a horrible way to live.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even get my head around it. Like you exist, but you have no autonomy. Like there's nothing you can do. That's just a bizarre scenario to be in. Is it that sort of thing that draws you to it? Like is there's a fascination with that, I don't even know how to describe it. That idea that you're in some sort of bondage.
Purgatory, really. I think
purgatory.
It's really for it. It's like, you just don't know where you are, where you stand, and where you'll be tomorrow. And I think, let's face it, as humans, don't we all love certainty? I mean, I don't know about you, but like when you know something bad's coming, you know what it is, when it's coming, it's easier to deal with than that anxiety of thinking, is something going to go wrong here? And what is it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes though, I think like I can't help, maybe because I'm a writer, maybe I'm just a narcissist or something. I don't know. But I always think about scenarios like, what if I were kidnapped, or what if I were, wrongfully imprisoned, or, what if a terrorist was after me, or whatever. Like, in some respects, I feel like it would almost be freeing to know that, all the normal rules no longer apply and everything's on the table.
That's true. That's maybe. Fun, isn't it? Yeah. And one of the things that really struck me as fascinating was that there's so many different types of kidnapping. And not a lot of people know this. I mean, because, there's like an express kidnap, and that's when they might pick someone up at, 11:55 p.m. and take them to the ATM, force them to withdraw a full day's amount of money, keep them until 12:02 p.m., force them to withdraw the second day of money, and then release them. There's virtual kidnapping. This is where there literally is no kidnapping, but they are very masterful at phoning up people, knowing that their spouse or someone they love is really tied up in like a meeting or all-day seminar, whatever it is, can't be reached.
Yeah.
And they start saying that I've got your, loved one, and I'm going to kill them unless you give me $3,000 in the next 3 hours. And it tends to be lower amounts because it's kind of quick cash grab before it becomes aware that, the person they love is not kidnapped. And they prey on people who are very reactive and, nervous, and it's horrible what they do. It's truly horrible. Yeah. And that has been a big thing. There's also something called tiger kidnapping. And that is where, let's say, a pharmaceutical executive or, banking person has a formula or code or something they want. They kidnap like the person's family and then hold them hostage until the person that has the information coughs up that information.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea there were different silos of
There's
kidnapping.
many more. I mean,
Wow.
there's state-sanctioned kidnapping, right? Where sometimes happens in places like China or, other places, right? Where they just grab somebody and it's not really legal, but they do anyway. There's obviously terrorist kidnappings, and those are the most terrifying, really, because if you're a journalist, especially,
Yeah.
and you're taken by ISIS, the chances of you getting out unless you escape are very slim.
Yeah. Now, do you have like contacts that you use regularly to research this stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know several kidnap negotiators that work in the field, and I am actually really lucky to have met Gary Nesner, who's the former hostage negotiation chief guy at the FBI. And I don't know if you know that show Waco that's on TV.
Yeah.
That's Gary's story. Like he's the main guy in it. So he's been incredibly helpful and kind to me as well. There's been a multitude of people that have truly been generous and thoughtful and very helpful.
So how do you cultivate those relationships? Because I know that, so from my own personal experience, like there are, there are resources at like the FBI and things like where you can call and you can actually book a time to chat with an agent, and you can get all these different resources they have. But like if you want to reach out to someone like that, how do you go about that?
Well, I think the most important first step is to get to know everything you can about the subject matter, so you come off as professional.
Yeah.
And you don't ask simple questions that can easily be Googled or, that kind of thing. I think you really need to make yourself as much of an expert as possible.
Okay.
I find like it's really helpful if you basically connect through other people. So for example, when I went to the conference, I met several people there. Yeah. And I met former hostages. I met, kidnap negotiators. I met NGO people who handle a lot of kidnappings, overseas. I met a ton of people. So I asked those people to introduce me to other people that I needed. And I ended up meeting a top psychiatrist who specializes in the hostages mindset. I've met, people who are like Navy SEALs who do the rescues when they say all hope is gone except for the rescue. And then they just do that. So really it's about making yourself a very professional, being organized when you speak to them so they don't feel like they're wasting their time. Being grateful. I think sometimes sending a nice note or a small gift or anything like that to show your appreciation is important.
Yeah.
And then also it's about the Rolodex. And I know it's an old term, but it's kind of a fun one. It's just, who do you know that knows someone else that can help you? And basically you work it that way. You just say, hey, I'm working on a book. This is my issue. Who can help? And then these people have been amazing to me. Just like, oh, I know Bob and Bob can do this,
Yeah. You sort of briefly glossed over, I think, a very important resource, and it's directly connected to things like ITW, where when you go to these conferences, it's a great place to meet these people. Like they frequent these places, they speak at these places, and
yeah, they do.
Yeah, and I'm sure that ThrillerFest itself is jam packed with all kinds of resources like that.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, honestly, it's like I was laughing at one time. We have a security, team on site, just honestly, just as sort of a precautionary thing. And it's really funny because it's like, what? Our security team, they could take over a small country.
Yeah. And that's what's fun. Yeah. And I was just thinking like, okay, all right, I'm going to have to write a book where somebody foolishly tries to take over a conference like that. And because like that would be the dumbest mistake anybody could make, is like, so you've got this conference just jam packed full of agents and former criminals, even like that. That's just
totally. I mean, I agree with you. I think we get a wide variety of people. And what I love is that a lot of people come to writing as a second career. So you get lawyers and doctors and accountants and tons of people that have had interesting careers. So that's what makes it so much fun hanging out there, because like you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think that it seems like so many thriller authors were formerly attorneys?
It's so true. It's so true. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. First of all, I do believe lawyers are really honed in the art of writing. If you're going to write a good brief or, or even oral, arguments, You need to be very organized, precise, and frankly, a lot of lawyers, when they're presenting in court, are telling a story. They're creating a story for the jury's minds. So they're natural storytellers. That's exactly why.
Now, this isn't a question, but I am going to pop it up. And this is our own Lexi Green. And I want you to comment on this. But it must be extra important to maintain accuracy when writing thrillers with how many people in that community probably have background in law.
Lexi, you're so right. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, well, don't you think, though, in general, like that you really should get the facts right? If you make a firearms error in your book, a lot of people will write you. If you make another kind of error in your book, people will write you. People are very generous with their expertise. And they, you know, and the last thing you want in the world is for some expert to be reading your book and enjoying it, hitting a spot where something's really wrong and throwing the book across the room. So to avoid that, I believe heavily in research. Now, is it possible mistakes happen? Of course. But, you know, these things do. And I do feel that, you know, we're all human and we do our best. But at the end of the day, I really feel that it's important, so important to try and get the facts as right as you can. And that's why I feel it's so key to do your research, to not just do a slapdash job on a quick Google search, but to dive in deeper.
Yeah. Now, what about locations? Because, you know, I'm scanning through your books and there's, you know, I've seen mentions of things like Nairobi and, you know, places that would be considered foreign to us here. But have you visited these locations, or do you have another means of?
Yeah, I know all of them. I'm an avid traveler. And so I grew up, my dad was in telecommunications, and I lived in Africa and Puerto Rico and Saudi Arabia and Europe. And we kept moving. So even though I'm Canadian, I've lived in many, many different countries. And I love that. I feel, to me, when you go to a country, you notice the five senses there. You know, the smell, the taste, the sounds, what's happening. And at the end of the day, I think it's just fantastic that, you know, you can bring that reality. For example, in The Freedom Broker, I do, you know, an important scene in Santorini, Greece. And it's a stunning island. If you haven't been, I think you would love it. And I have been there because I really wanted to make sure I had every single thing right. Because, you know, so that people that had been to Santorini already were like, oh my gosh, I love it. I can picture it again. And, you know, and people who hadn't been were like, geez, that sounds nice. I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever use resources, though, like Google Earth or something like that, to refresh your memory?
Sure. I think the more you can do, like, I think of research as a multi-layered tool. And I think you should always keep going up and down and drilling down and doing whatever it takes, or going wide, you know what I mean? And finding out what you need. Yeah.
Going wide means something different in our world than that's a joke. What are some of the tools then that you rely on? I mean, Google Earth is probably one of them, but is there anything else you fall back on?
Well, I mean, I feel like, you know, if you want it, let's say setting, if you really want to do setting, I think there's a lot of incredibly well done travel blogs out there. And that's where you can get inspiration from, you know, even if you've been to the place, maybe someone saw something slightly different than you. And that, I think, can be a really, really helpful thing. As far as research and connections go, I highly recommend LinkedIn. I've met several people on LinkedIn that have helped me like immensely with respect to, you know, the kind of area of expertise that I need. So LinkedIn is something I think that can be a powerful tool, and many people wouldn't think of that, right?
Yeah. I have used that to do like informational interviews on various topics. So, but it's funny, I've used that, but it didn't even occur to me that I was utilizing a resource. But you're right. LinkedIn's a good one. YouTube's another one. Like I practically live on YouTube.
It's nice because you can have stuff done, you know, like, for example, let's say you want to break into a safe, right? Like all you need to do is YouTube that, and then you can find out how to do that. And it's actually scary, and you'll probably never leave your possessions in another hotel safe again if you do that, because you have no idea how easy it is to open those things.
I know. I have actually watched a series of those. Also, there are a couple of guys I follow who are always showing you how to break locks, how to pick and disable locks. mostly as a sort of public service thing, But
Yeah.
it's pretty remarkable how absolutely unprotected we are when it comes to that stuff. Yeah. So what's your process? Do you have do you write every day? I mean, is that a daily?
Yeah. I mean, whenever I can, obviously. I mean, there's always times where you write more, and like, for example, as we work towards ThrillerFest, it gets super busy. So sometimes I have to take, and put my priority on the ITW work.
Yeah.
But I feel I'm a very organic writer. I work from concepts and ideas. I always laugh because like Jeffrey Deaver does, I think like 100-page outlines, for his books. And I have the deepest respect for that process, but I could never do that. One, it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work. And secondly, I would be really bored because I need to be surprised by myself in my mind as I write. Things happen in my mind that the book goes in a completely different direction. Now, I think you have to trust your process, and everyone out there, you're never doing it wrong. You're doing it your way, and please just enjoy that.
Yeah. I've always admired people who could do the outlining thing. And my latest book, I decided I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna outline, and I probably have like 20 pages of outline sitting over here, and I've already just wildly diverged from that.
I mean, it's not a productive process when you're going to change it.
Right, exactly. I figure I probably got something out of it, but if nothing else, I got confirmation that I'm just going to end up doing it my way anyway. That's valuable to know. So you don't do any? I mean, do you sketch out something, or is there any kind of outlining involved in what you do?
Yeah. I think I always know where I'm going, and I think maybe where I want to end up at the very end, and but sometimes that can change as well, as you know. I'm really organized in my thinking, but I'm also relaxed and organic in my process. I don't know if that helps, but it just, I'm always thinking ahead, because I think if you don't, you're going to box yourself into a corner. But it's the way our minds work. Like, like there's the logical type who loves to do this really precise outline, and there's the free and easy people who like to do completely like write every day and never have an outline, and everything in between.
Yeah. What do you know about a book before you start?
That depends on the book. I mean, honestly, like, this is really fun too. Like, I love it when I have a title ahead of time, because I don't know, it's something about that helps me direct my focus.
Yeah.
But there's been a time too where I literally could not think of the title, and I just kept working on the book, and then you find it. So there are guideposts, obviously. I think the protagonist is probably the number one thing, because really, when you read a book you love, if you ask yourself why, it's almost undoubtedly the character.
Yeah. I almost every book I've ever written that ever saw print actually started with the title. So I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one who does that.
Yeah, well, I love it. I just, when I get the title and it's like, oh my gosh, this is helping me, and I'm working forward on it. But then when I don't have it, it's like, oh goodness, like, direction.
Well, the title is it's I don't know, it can inspire, like there's an art to titles.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can be really good at it, or you can be really bad at it. And there are some pretty bad titles out there, in my opinion. Even the big hitters sometimes have some titles. I'm like,
I agree.
I don't know if I would have done that.
Yeah. And there's another factor there, right? Because like I've always been really lucky. I've always been able to keep my titles that I created. But a lot of publishers say, okay, your title does not work. We're going to have to change your title. And so they start suggesting titles. And that would be a panicky place to be, because can you imagine if you really didn't like your own title, or your cover for that matter?
Yeah, I know. That's a challenge. I don't face that challenge as much as I'm sure you do, and others in the more traditional path. But that would be tough for me to look at a cover and say, that's a terrible cover, but I have no choices. So what now you have I'm assuming you have an agent, and you have relationships with professionals on that side of the fence. What's it like, because most of our audience is going to be self-published authors, indie authors. What's it like working with teams like that?
Sure. And I think that indie publishing is an incredible place. And I'm so impressed by what some people are doing in this area. I mean, they're making way more money than some of the traditionally published people. If you're good, if you see, this is what goes back to that three-pronged thing we talked about, you know, writing, craft, business, and then the marketing. And if you're a marketing star and you can get your books out there and sell them, I mean, all I can say is, like, I bow to you. Impressive work. Because we all know how crowded a market it is, first of all.
Right.
And how competitive it is just to get published. And so to stand out, you know, because of those skills, you should, you know, be really proud of yourself. It is lovely to have partners in your journey. And I guess that's really what agents and editors are really all about, is like, you're able to show your agent, let's say, an earlier draft and get some feedback. There are different types of agents. There are some that only sell books, you know, and there are some that really do work on a book with the author and act almost as a second editor or a freelance editor kind of, and then you submit to the editor. But having a team of people around you, I think it does take a village, you know, to produce a book. And it depends how prolific you are too, right? If you're one of these people who can pound out books endlessly and also have a lot of time to market, I mean, the indie world might be better because, you know, you have that ability. Because with traditionally published books, it usually takes 12 to 18 months to come out. So that's a long time to wait. And sometimes that has backfired on people. For example, if some certain news element comes out where it changes the book and its importance or its viability, that can crash a book. So that's a scary time for traditionally published authors. You know, no one really talks about that, but those 12, 18 months, you know, you're doing a ton of stuff trying to get ready for publication. But I kind of wish it would go faster. I think it should go faster, don't you?
Yes. But I'm a little biased on that because, you know, I write a book, I edit it, and I get it to print as fast as possible. So, but I will say this: I am, you know, I'm kind of working with somebody now on a more traditional path for a book, and it is very interesting to me. Like, I'm learning a lot about it. I'm gaining a greater appreciation for what people go through when they have to wait that out. It's excruciating. So I admire you for going back to that over and over again.
I mean, there's pros and cons to everything in life, right? And you have to weigh it all and decide, you know, what it is that you really want to focus on. In the ideal world, like, I wish it was like this, to be honest with you. I wish so much that writers could just write. They could, and then they could do some appearances, but they wouldn't have to hustle as much. Because it is truly like having several jobs, you know, trying to market, do social media, and then write. And the most important thing for writers is to write the best book, like we talked about earlier, because that's what's going to make someone come back. So I would love to see writers be able to focus so much more on writing the best book of their heart.
Me too. And maybe we'll get there. I mean, it seems like everything's in somewhat of a flux right now, and who knows what's going to come out on the other side of it.
Yeah, the dream publisher, right, would be someone who would do all the heavy lifting on the marketing side, but would just say to you, I need you at this time, and this time. But if you have to hustle and get those appearances yourself, and you have to do your own social media, it really sucks a lot of creative energy. And I think that's sad. Anyway, just you know, thought.
Yeah. And then you go and do something crazy like volunteer for a conference organization for 18 years.
Exactly.
So
what was
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just laughing. I'm saying, what was I thinking, right? Like, it's like,
what were you thinking?
I mean, that's the thing that's really hard. Like, you know, and you have to protect your creative space. I think that's really the best advice I could ever give anyone, is to protect your creative space, because there are a million things authors have to do, whether it comes to appearances, social media, business, whatever, you know, promotions, all that stuff. But you got to protect the most brilliant essence of your work, and that is your actual writing.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up against time, and I want to make sure people know where to find you and stuff about Thriller, ITW and ThrillerFest. And let's see, your website is, I'm putting it on screen now for everybody, kjhowe.com. That's KJHOWE.com for those who are listening to the show. I got a whole list here, so let's go through it. You can check out ITW, International Thriller Writers, at thrillerwriters.org, and I highly recommend you go there and join up. That is a great organization. And of course, you can register for ThrillerFest if you go to thrillerfest.com. Did I miss any, or I misspell anything? Did I get it all right?
No, you did great. There's also the bigthrill.org you can go to if you want to see our newsletter. Like I said, my email's there. Delighted to help or support you in any way, and I wish you the best in your writing journey.
Well, and when we have Sherpas like you to guide us, I think we're all in really good shape. So, but for now, everybody, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Self-Publishing Insiders. Make sure that you go to d2dlive.com. I don't know why this is on a ticker. Let me save that and redo that. Sorry. Be sure to bookmark d2dlive.com, where you can see a little countdown when we have episodes like this one every week, and we have them every week. Come check us out. And thank you once again to our wonderful guest, Kimberley Howe. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Kevin, I really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for being a great interviewer, and keep me posted, and remember to send those tough questions.
We're going to do it, and you and I will talk again, I promise. So,
okay, good. I can't wait.
Everybody else, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Take care.